I am live, by the way.
Cool. I am about to be live. I'm just testing my wonderful Facebook, YouTube comment stuff because it crashes and then it will crash me off the stream if it doesn't go through.
Oh, no, that would be bad. That would be very bad.
So what happened yesterday?
This fortnight's beverage is original Red Bull.
Ooh.
Which I need because we're sick.
Yay. And sick will be the comments that will come in today. So thank you very much, everyone, for popping along if you're watching this on replay. This is Failcast 2017 edition, episode 2. Going to be covering the Monza Grand Prix and plenty of other bits and bobs as well. And sadly, this is also the Pandemic Everyone's Ill edition. So my name is Simon from How I Play Games. And as always, alongside me is definitely Zero. And how you doing, mate?
I'm dying, mate.
Everyone is dead.
Yeah.
This is literally like we're channeling 90s F1 team budgets just for our health.
Also, it really is a failcast because I was in Norway during the Italian Grand Prix, and I saw like the first 5 opening laps, which looked pretty good to be fair, but they were with the sound off and they were in like an Irish-American sports bar.
Ooh. I
have no idea what happened in that race, so the breakdown's going to be all you, buddy. It's going to be all you.
Excellent. To be fair, it was the most boring race of the season, I think. So I don't think we'll struggle for too long at that. As you can see, 5th and 9th, double point scoring last time out as well. So that's good.
Yeah, hell of a recovery drive by my good self, if I do say so myself, which I do.
Which is just as well. So let's.
And we have a full schedule for this fortnight's episode. We actually have questions to answer. We've got some topics on board.
Yeah.
We've got F1 news and opinion to discuss, which is kind of the whole point of being here.
Yes,
so,
it's almost like we organised and everything.
It's almost like we organised the podcast after 8 years.
Excellent. So shall we ready up and dive in with the first topic? That. Should we cover the Monza, or should I cover the Monza Grand Prix?
Yeah, you cover the Monza Grand Prix, and I can give you some tourism advice for Norway.
So, well, I suppose first thing then, watching F1 in Norway in an Irish bar, how was that?
Excellent. I was actually in the Arctic Circle. So,
oh, wow.
It was nice to get out of the breeze for a little bit.
Was you channeling your inner Kimmy?
I did, exactly. No, I was surprised to hear you say that the race wasn't so good, actually, because I saw like the opening laps, and it looked like some stuff was going on, and I did see Verstappen run into problems again.
Yes,
running into Massa. I have no idea what happened.
So
I didn't do my research.
Excuse me. That was the entertainment. Really, was both Red Bulls having to fight their way back up through the field a wee bit because Mercedes waltzed off with a 1-2 power circuit, obviously. So they were
indeed
off and away. Hamilton trouncing Bottas. There's no way that Bottas would be allowed to win a championship now, even if Hamilton just didn't turn up for the rest of the year. I think Vettel clung on gamely for third. Kimi Raikkonen barely turned up as usual. And Daniel Ricciardo done one of his last of the minute late breaks to dive past him for 4th position and practically scared Kimi Raikkonen off the road. And that was really the good late race stuff. For me, the more exciting stuff actually happened on the qualifying on the Saturday when it was peeing down with rain. Shades of Vettel getting the pole for Toro Rosso and then the win. I was getting all excited. My Minardi blood channeling through.
Speaking of qualifying, well, obviously qualifying and race, all I did hear about Monza was that Ferrari were a shadow of their recent selves. How bad was it? I mean, what was the deficit?
It looked over half a second. I mean, the problem was, it's because you've got this oil burning controversy that's going on at the moment.
Which they're still allowed to do, I believe.
They are. I believe it's. I think it's been banned for next year. But essentially, this was going to be Mercedes's simple win circuit, I think, if there was one.
That was a bad line.
And then we're off to Singapore next, which is kind of their worst one. So it'll be interesting, I think, to see the extreme parity one way or another. But it does worry me for the second half of the year that there's more powery type circuits, I think, than anything else. And that plays very much into an oil-burning Mercedes.
I mean, do you think this is Mercedes sort of unlocking potential that was already there?
Yeah.
And maybe running a little bit closer to the mark in terms of reliability, or is it actually a new engine? Like I said, I didn't keep up with the news while I was out of town. I braked a little too late there.
I don't know necessarily around new upgrades or anything like that whatsoever, but I think the worry for me was that by like half distance they're just mucking about, turning down the engine, so they're not even having to push themselves, which kind of then makes you go, oh no.
I mean, that's everyone's worst nightmare right now, I think, unless you're a real hardcore Lewis Hamilton fan, to get to a circuit and see both Mercedes in particular, where it's clearly a car advantage.
Yeah.
See them just ride off into the sunset.
Yeah.
Apparently I'm out for a Sunday drive today, because that was a very leisurely way to take that corner.
But yeah, it does make me worry, because they were kind of like, oh yeah, over one lap it's okay, but it's or we know that we're in trouble, but over a race distance we're much more on the pace, and it didn't really seem that way. I mean, Vettel said that he had some car trouble and that's why he wasn't able to keep pace, but
that's their go-to line though, isn't it? It's been their go-to line for years, that we struggle in qualifying but we've got the pace for the race. They're constantly claiming that, and I've not always been particularly convinced about it.
No.
It's such an odd one as well, because I've lost a lot of time there too. I keep messing up my braking point there, even though it's clearly highlighted for me. And the bollard's gone. It's only a matter of time.
You aimed for it anyway.
I still think the Ferrari is the better car across a wider range of conditions, and I repeat myself and say that all the time. So I was very disappointed and surprised to see how big the deficit was. I mean, I did think Mercedes were probably going to take it on balance because, as you say, power circuit, and it very clearly is the best engine, even though the gap has sort of closed a bit.
Yeah.
I just realised that I put the setup together for a McLaren, and that's why it's feeling a little odd.
I think what was heartening for me, though, was that Red Bull seemed to have just as much pace in the race if they wasn't having problems and millions of gearbox penalties and stuff like that, or breaking front wings, because they were busy going around setting fastest laps. I mean, admittedly, Hamilton I don't think was pushing all of the way, but
I did actually see Christian Horner come out and say what I was saying in the last episode, that these penalties have to stop. I know he's obviously biased into saying that,
a little bit,
because it's his team that's really on. Him and McLaren are on the spanking end of that particular paddle, but he's still correct that, you know, I think when you look at someone like Max Verstappen, right, and you think back to 90, 91, 92, when Schumacher entered the sport, and it was very, very much the same effect. I'm going faster again on this lap, but I need to come in because I'm going to run out of fuel. I'm like 3/10 up because I finally learned how to take the first corner correctly with this setup. And I'm going to have to throw this lap away. That's ridiculous. But you saw Schumacher had the same effect that Vettel's having, you know, a lot of asses in seats, very high attendance, big interest on the TV rights.
Yeah.
and he saw that Jordan was not going to be a place to really capitalise on Schumacher's potential, so he forced through a move to Benetton. And I've heard more than one commentator say, well, if Bernie was still around, he'd find a way to get Max out of that Red Bull contract. And I think there's not only some merit to that, but as much as, I'm not a fully paid up member of the Max Verstappen fan club, that's no secret.
Never.
But for the good of the sport, yeah, I totally messed up my braking there again. For the good of the sport, I think we need to see him in a more competitive, or more regularly competitive car very soon. It's not that the Red Bull is necessarily terrible. It is quite clearly the third car. It's arguably one of the best seats for the future. I mean, I'm pretty sure they'll get there. But if you look at the fact that people pay to go and often travel quite an excessive distance just to see him, and his engine or his gearbox constantly fails, or he's hampered by penalties, I don't think that's going to enable the momentum to continue. I think a lot of people are going to get fed up of, because it's not cheap to attend the Grand Prix, of going there to find that your favourite driver, for fairly arbitrary reasons, has no chance at pole, for example. And Horner said pretty much what I said, which was find a way to punish the team for making that change. Maybe a financial penalty or points off in the constructors, but don't punish the drivers. And it's very rare that I make an argument that says favour the show over the integrity of the sport. But I think this is one of those cases where I would, actually. What do you think?
I don't know. I something about so I think penalties. I don't really know how. I don't have a solution yet, so I don't feel like I can form a full opinion. Going back to what you were saying about Bernie would find a way of getting him out of that contract. To me, that's like putting someone ahead of the sport. It's almost like saying that he is the sport, if that makes sense. And I don't feel comfortable with that.
I'm not a huge fan of it myself, but I see it as a necessary sacrifice for the good of the sport.
Like a lamb.
Yeah, exactly. I just tuned in to you to see you have a massive lockup.
Oh, thank you very much.
I'm going on board with you for a minute, so I can do the heavy lifting while you are doing the qualifying. You and I, 4th and 5th, I think, or
we are
3rd and 4th.
4th.
Ooh, that's dangerously competitive. No doubt we'll have a massive accident at the start.
I'm sure we will. This is quite oversteery, this setup of mine.
We didn't compare setups actually either. Anyway, I agree with what you're saying. Oh, there goes the first one.
Well, it wouldn't be a stream if I didn't lose at least one.
To be honest, it could have been either of us, because I had real trouble in my career mode playthrough with turn 1.
Okay.
That the car would, when I was sort of coming back on the power at the end of the corner, the car would sort of spin round on itself. And that was a problem I was really struggling with. Today, it seems my problem is the corner you're coming up to now, which... Well, first of all, the braking indicator is bugged. It's balked. So it shows yellow when it should still be showing green, so I keep missing my braking point, but I should have the instinct for it by now, to be honest. Okay, as you're coming in, I will go out.
I think we'll be through to Q2 at this rate anyway.
Yeah, but we've got the tyres. They're taken back at the end of the session. Might as well shred them up a little bit. Oh, hello.
Hello.
So what we've decided so far then is that we disagree about, or we are in total agreement about penalties, Verstappen, and whatnot.
Yeah, I don't know how. I don't know how to solve the penalty thing. I was talking about this with some people on a different stream yesterday, and no one could really come up with a satisfactory solution. But I guess the sport needs to. It's one of those things where you decide whether the sport of Formula One, is it going to be road relevant? Is it going to be balls to the wall, cost whatever, spend money like twats, or is it going to try and go for this efficiency kind of run of things to still be road relevant? And there's
Sorry, mate. But I think you've just segued into our first. Go on through. Oh. You've just segued into our first topic, so this is actually working quite nicely because because you were discussing, whether we're road relevant. We touched on the power units in the last episode. I actually saw someone shared with me on Twitter a sort of a cartoon from one of the F1 blogs of the FIA and Liberty Media sat with their fingers in their ears while people unloaded wheelbarrows of reasons to go back to V8s. And I said I completely disagree with this cartoon. There are reasons to go back to V8s, but none of them are good for the sport. Long term, ultimately.
Yeah.
And what you're saying there is, do we have to decide between road relevancy or staying true to what I guess some people... I'm going to back off here because I'm going to catch their line really quickly, and that would be bad.
I think it's Palmer ahead as well, so you've got to give at least 30 seconds.
Oh, it's a double trouble. It's basically a mobile chicane. Now, what has come out recently is obviously we know that Cosworth are evaluating a return in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Aston Martin have expressed some interest in becoming an engine supplier in 2021.
Yep.
We saw Porsche all but announce a return for 2021, depending on the regulations.
Mm-hmm.
And McLaren are now saying, well, if the regulations are conducive to it, we will build our own engine in 2021. Now, all of those I find immensely exciting announcements. Hugely so.
Yeah.
And I think what it demonstrates is something that I've been a bit unsure about over the last few years, because we've often, you and I, spoke about this problem, since tobacco money is gone, all kinds of things have happened to the sport that have made it seem a less viable proposition. We have less interest from teams and suppliers. We have a shortage of cash, teams running into financial trouble a lot more often than they were previously. I completely balls this lap, but I'm still faster than I was, so I'm going to finish it. I think what this demonstrates quite clearly is that if the regulations are road relevant and not prohibitively expensive, and the two are not mutually exclusive, excuse me, that the interest is there.
Yeah.
We can have more works engine suppliers in the sport. It's totally feasible. Just cut that corner there for a laugh.
I was going to say, that was an interesting line.
Yeah, I missed my breaking point again, and I had already lost a bunch of time in Sector 2, so I just gave up on that lap. Going to try again. I think it shows that, road relevancy does have a limit, because, a lot of companies told us that the V6 hybrid was the most road relevant option. But then the complete reluctance to actually enter the sport and put their money where their mouth is kind of demonstrates that for what it is. However, I think what we can see pretty clearly is that if we can sort of tone the cost of development down just a tad, but still have the end power unit be relevant to modern road cars, so that means probably still sticking with some form of turbocharged V6, we can get the suppliers and ergo the money back into the sport.
I agree.
If we have all the current engine suppliers remain plus the new ones that are considering entering, we could have a scenario where, Williams and Force India are works powered outfits.
Yeah.
Imagine what that would do for the championship potentially.
It'd be lovely. And I suppose also, what makes me excited about that with the whole 2021 alignment of all of these different people if they come in, is that's exactly when Ross Brawn's rule regulations will all be taking into effect as well, because he can't do anything until 2020. So it earmarks an excitement over what Formula One in 2020 and 2021 could actually look like, because for me there's a lot riding on what Ross Brawn brings in, but clearly he's able to say something and put his money where his mouth is because people are interested.
I think it's actually a show of faith in his capabilities, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think he's so well respected, and I am willing to put faith in any regulations that he puts his seal of approval on, because for the first time in a long time, we have a genuine insider deciding the rules. I mean, you could make an argument that Max Mosley was an insider, which of course he was, but between Mosley and today has been quite a considerable amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that we're totally exempt these days from totally terrible decisions. Like I was reading Jean Tolt's comments that he wants a yellow halo device to work like the yellow jersey in the Tour de France. To highlight the championship leader.
I feel like no.
Yeah, I feel it's a no from me, John.
Yeah, 3 lights and you're out, mate. Plus, that is too good for sponsorship realty space, since you won't actually see the friggin' helmet properly.
I guess this is why they've already moved ahead with like driver number rules and putting the name in big letters on the side of the car and all that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, because there's got to be some way of going. It's got to be some kind of personality, especially if you're at the track as well, because that makes it quite difficult for you to relate to drivers. If you can't even see the helmets, then you need to be able to see something.
Yeah, very true. 5th and 9th. Did you not go out again, mate?
No. I had my faith that I'd be all right,
and so it came to pass.
Such Ian McKellen.
Lance Stroll is super overpowered in this game.
It is ridiculous. Although he didn't do bad in Italy, front row start obviously quite good in the wet.
He is handy in the wet, isn't he? I mean, to be honest, you and I have stuck up for him all season, and we said he'd come good. And he is coming good, but I still don't think. I think this game's being a bit too generous to his current level of development. Yeah,
he needs to be slapped down a wee bit, along with Kimi, obviously. What was I going to say? Yeah, and also to dovetail in with that as well, with all of those other manufacturers you're talking about, Alfa Romeo may also be popping along to rebrand Sauber from next year.
Now, I would love to see that. It's actually something Ferrari have been talking about for a while, that they wanted to get the Alfa name back into F1, and the eagle-eyed among us will notice that the Alfa Romeo logo has been on the Ferrari cars for some time, a few years, and if you look at the Ferrari overalls, you'll see like a white graphic with a green looks like a shamrock inside.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that is Alfa Romeo related in some way. I did actually look up what it was for, but they have been keen to get the brand into Formula One, and he'd actually already stated in the past the idea of I think 2 years ago now, or at least a season ago, that he wanted to see a junior team, ideally Alfa Romeo branded in. So you actually caught me off guard when you mentioned it when we talked earlier, because I had not heard this rumour, but after you mentioned it, I thought, well, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, because I was looking through like the history of this rumour, and earlier on in the season there was talk of Alfa Romeo basically rebranding the Ferrari engines on the Haas and the Sauber to be Haas Alfa Romeos and Sauber Alfa Romeo. Get the words out, Smithy. But essentially, now that Mr. Vasseur is now looking at is now in charge of Sauber, immediately cancelled that Honda deal because he's like, not lol, nope. And then has immediately reconnected Sauber back to Ferrari, because remember, every year that they had a Petronas engine, that was a Ferrari really in the back.
It was.
So the history is there. Charles Leclerc will be named as driver number 1, I'm sure alongside Ericsson, because it's his investors that keep that thing afloat. Who...
I've warmed to Ericsson as well. But
yes. No, I agree. I think he should stick around. I don't think he's being Princess Pascal. I think he's on his way out of F1, in my opinion. But, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. But the investors, if I remember rightly, and I saw this, I'm sure, on Ted's notebook, a Tetra Pak. So, yeah. Marcus Ericsson...
That is true.
Yeah. So every time you take a swig of orange juice, just think, Marcus, you're taking one for Sauber and Marcus Ericsson and the team. But yeah, I'd quite like to see a Tetra Pak F1 car on the grid for next year.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's not as good as my I wanted Dildo King Sauber, but still,
that would be if it was what was the F1 driver that went off to do sex toys? I've forgotten. Wasn't it? It was Robert Doorknobs, wasn't
it? Yeah, Dornbos. Yeah.
Yeah.
Doorknobs. I like it.
Sorry, that's a complete segue sidetrack there. But yeah, a Sauber Alfa Romeo, I'd like to see. I'd personally like to see the Sauber name stay, so long as there's some kind of DNA of Sauber still there. But I'm not really sure if there is anymore.
I don't know. I'd like to see the name protected. I don't think it needs to be called Alfa Romeo, the whole team.
I barely hear anything about Alfa. When I see their cars, I think, alright, they're easy.
Oh, hello, Jay. He was saying something about how he doesn't ever hear about the Alfa Romeo brand at all.
Well, I think this is probably why they decided to do this, potentially.
Yeah.
Because also it's in that category as well. I mean, technically, Alfa Romeo is more of a direct competitor to Mercedes than Ferrari themselves are.
Yeah.
If you think about the bulk of their market. And I think it makes a lot of sense, in that executive saloon car space, the premium saloon car space, to put Alfa up against Mercedes on some level of competition. I mean, problem is Alfa Romeo will get trounced for the remainder of the current formula, but long term, it could actually be quite a prudent move. And also, I think it's a good thing for Ferrari. I honestly believe it's a win-win for all parties involved here, because Ferrari get more brand exposure than just Ferrari.
Yeah.
And suddenly their more affordable cars become associated with the prestige of Formula One.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't really cost any more in terms of their investment. Oh shit, I was going to be faster. I was going to be so much faster. I fucked up that corner again.
No.
I'm going to come in and put the faster tyre on. I was being cocky. I thought I could get through on softs, but I'm not convinced.
I'm trying it.
I would have been half a second faster there if I hadn't have ballsed up that final corner.
Any other dream team manufacturers you'd like to see in F1?
To be honest, I'd like Ford to come back. I think Haas and Ford just makes so much sense.
Surely
it really
Haas. There's a joke in there somewhere, but I was trying to find some kind of Haas behind joke.
No, I mean, let's be honest, right? Eventually, Haas are going to come off, or they're going to have to come off the Ferrari teat.
Yeah.
But they'll still need an engine supplier, and if he's serious about competing, then he needs to find a work supply.
Yeah. And
if the engine regulations are suitably changed, I know Ford are not particularly keen to come back to Formula One, but when you've got the likes of the VW Group, Aston, Cosworth, all looking at it seriously again, then there must be rumblings of something that's relevant to all these companies. I'd just like to see I'd like to see Ford come back to the party.
Just for
Wow, where did you pull that lap time from, you cheeky monkey?
Whoop whoop. It was a very good lap. I'd personally just love to see Skoda in F1. It would be a weekly chortle, just all year round. I'd love it. And then if they won something, it's just no one else would be able to live it down. I think it'd probably have Formula One implode on itself if that did happen. Or Lada, that'd be quite nice.
Lada. No, to be honest, I'm mostly excited about Cosworth coming back.
Yeah, especially because
a lot of teams. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I think because beforehand they were always stuck on that, we're buying the customer kind of stuff. And I think they got such a raw end of the deal because no one else would touch giving out customer units or anything like that whatsoever. And so I feel like they've not been given the love that they should have done, because actually they propped up half of the grid with khaki old units that they were able to kind of pull out of the bag. And actually F1 probably owed them quite a lot during that time. And so it'd be nice to see them come back like fully committed with to be honest, one team.
I don't think they've disgraced themselves at any time.
No.
I don't recall there ever being like a truly horrifically bad Cosworth engine.
Nope.
It's just that, you know, the most recent foray into F1, they were associated with the worst teams possible.
Yeah.
Which made them look inherently uncompetitive. And it also meant that when most of those teams went out of business, the fact that they developed an engine for the new formula didn't matter because no one wanted it. Whereas now, particularly Red Bull and McLaren, but especially Red Bull, are really lamenting the fact that Cosworth aren't still around. They're desperate for an independent works supplier. You know, that's what they want, particularly Red Bull. They want a works level deal, but with a company that's happy just to badge the engine.
Accident. Deer run away and now I shoot myself in leg. Only in forest is mean. Lot of trees. Rural.
What? I don't even know what that was. Sorry, Jay, that needs more context. It just sounds like you're going off on a hunting trip. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah, no. I completely agree. A little part of me would like to see Yamaha back as well. Have a little battle of the Japs.
Yeah, I actually miss Yamaha as well. I was just thinking about that. I've been watching a lot of, as usual, 90s F1, but I've gone a bit further back in time to like the early Yamaha years where they were. I mean, those guys were hosing money onto the deck, trying to get competitive.
But text-to-speech cuts up annoyingly.
Okay. Okay, Jay was talking about how Lardo should really be for people that are in a forest shooting deer. Fair enough.
They were temporarily involved in F1 a little, because they were the major backers of one Mr. Vitaly Petrov.
Oh, Christ, yeah.
They were on the side pods at Lotus Renault.
Yes. Good shout. I remember. And now that you've said it,
the
I remember.
Lotus that wasn't Lotus.
Yeah, the Loti years.
Until it was.
Christ. It was his birthday the other day, actually. I saw they were doing on What the F1, which is a site that I love and detest in equal measure. And they were doing Vitaly Petrov's top 5 drives of his career. Basically, 3 of them were blocking Alonso. So, yeah.
He did have some pretty solid results at times, though, didn't he?
Yeah, first Russian on a podium. And then got the best result of the new teams before Bianchi got points. So, yeah. Did good.
Kid done good.
Done good, kid. Done good. So what else have we got on the agenda? Because we made... I'm just getting up the list. Bear with me a smidge. Because we were so organised for this podcast that we actually had lists of topics and stuff to go through. So, whilst you're just out there on the lap. So...
Oh, this is a This is a wind-up lap. I've already screwed it, so...
Okay. So, whilst we were just talking about Alonso being blocked, the Alonso Williams story.
Yeah.
Potentially Alonso's future.
We missed covering this in the last episode, because it actually broke 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. We've not heard any more of it. My hot take is that actually part of me would kind of like to see it. I don't think it will happen, although I have no trouble believing that an offer has been extended.
Yeah.
Because that's Williams all over.
And for me, Massa's starting to talk all about how he'd love to go to Formula E. He knows the writing is on the wall if it's accepted, because he'll be the one that goes, not Stroll, obviously. Ooh, I'm down in
Speaking of Massa and Stroll, they've both just come out of the pits, nose to tail, and ruined my lap.
Yes.
Well, they've partly ruined it. I can probably claw it back if he lets me past, which of course he won't, because the AI on this game is on rails. Yeah, I'm already two tenths down.
Okay, Verstappen's out there on the softs, so I don't think he'll get me. I'm going to be brave, I'm not going out, and it's too late now anyway.
Remember, I thought the same thing, and then the cheating AI.
Yeah.
Oh, now you decide to move over. Now you've ruined my lap. Thanks, Lance.
So what's his motivation to fight for his place now?
Yep, very true, Jay. I agree with that. I feel like Massa is supposed to be doing like a final year's tour of finding different gravel traps to have problems in this year. And
I don't know. I think he's done really good, actually.
I know. I think he's done very, very well. I think he's had a terribly unlucky year of like every time someone's having a problem, they seem to harpoon poor Felipe, baby. But no, I think he's done a mighty fine job. And what was really, really nice actually was you had like the beginning of the Italian Grand Prix where everyone was having a good scrap for 5 laps. Then nothing happened for about 45 laps, and then the last 5 was Stroll having to defend from Massa, who was stuck between him and Perez, and it was clear that there's life in the old dog yet, because he was going absolutely nuts, diving in, having a go, trying to swap through.
Yeah, I've ruined my lap.
I saw a little lock-up.
Yeah, that was it. I mean, the thing is, back in the old days, I'd be ignorant about this because, you know, a professional driver can know when they've lost time. I never used to have that sense, but now the game specifically tells me, like, you are now 2 tenths down on yourself. And I find it really demoralising in career mode. Time was, I would have just finished the lap and I might have clawed the time back, but now I'm like half a second down on myself, so whatever. No, I do think there's life in the old dog, yeah. And, what's more, 5th and 6th, and you've got through on the softs, you cheeky monkey.
Not yet. They've not all crossed the line and cheated.
But I actually think, you know, he's the best guy to be mentoring Stroll. I don't think Alonso would be willing to play that role.
No, and that is an interesting comment, actually, is that when has Alonso actually had a harmonious team relationship? Apart from maybe Button.
Yeah, him and Button seem to be BFFs for life, didn't they?
Yeah. I mean, they were pissing in each other's seats. But, yeah, it kind of makes me go, what information would he ever impart? Cheating Williams is up to 5th and 6th. And,
I've got 7th. What about you?
8th. Verstappen out. Tried the softs, failed.
That was a hell of a lap you put in, by the way, because I'm on a tyre that should be like half a second faster, and yeah, the gap is not half a second.
It shall not last or pass, I'm sure.
No, like here's what I'm going to say, and I'm going to get pulled up on this comment later because it's the mirror opposite. Because we're going to get onto the McLaren engine saga. Mm-hmm. It's the mirror opposite of what I'm going to say about that.
Okay.
But I think a move to Williams for Alonso makes sense because of the following reasons. One, he is not going to get into a championship-winning team. And I think that is going to be true for the rest of his career. He is, in my opinion, the best driver in F1, but that's irrelevant when there are enough drivers of sufficient quality that are already entrenched in these teams. You're not going to boot Hamilton or Vettel for Alonso. If Ferrari wanted Alonso, Kimi wouldn't be taking up that seat next year.
Yeah.
Mercedes don't want two alpha drivers. They've been very clear about that, I think, through what they've done. And Red Bull only recruit internally. So where else is he going to go? Now, he could stay at McLaren and hope they switch to Renault, which I'm going to get onto later, but I think that would be a stupid move on McLaren's part.
Yeah.
So he's got a choice of the also-ran teams. And for me, I think assuming McLaren stick with Honda, why not Williams? Why not? If he wants to be fighting people, he can go over there, have a Mercedes engine. It'd be good for Williams, it'd be good for him. He's not going to win another title, but that will be true wherever he ended up now.
Yeah.
And, it's bad for Stroll, because I think Stroll probably really benefits from being alongside an old hand like Massa, who's actually really friendly and doesn't see him as a threat. I think Alonso's too competitive for that, and it could be his last year in Formula One, and he'd still not be really willing to bring the young guns up.
Yeah.
So it's a mixed bag, but at least in theory, I absolutely believe that there's no logical inconsistency with the idea of Alonso finishing his career at Williams. I actually think it would be quite a nice end to his career, given the available options. I don't know if it will happen, but as I said earlier, I have no trouble believing that the offer has been extended. At all. I'm almost 100% certain that Williams have actually extended that offer. I don't think that part is rumour and conjecture at all.
And they won't take him going GP2 power or whatever and parking up when he's 11th because he can't be bothered to finish a race. They will be a task grafter. I don't know.
Sometimes I think the AI drive especially slowly just to make sure they get in my way on my fast lap. So
They just love you.
Really back off. I said it before and I'll say it again. Traffic in this game is so much more disruptive than it's been in any game before.
Well, I've noticed in the latest patch that they've made it a little bit better, that people on hot laps now don't slow down to try and let you through and get in your way. Not like more. Okay, let's do this.
Oh, serious. We've both got our game face on because it's Q3.
We have. It's okay, it'll all be downhill into normal controversially shite gameplay afterwards.
Yeah, that's the story of us really, isn't it? That we've been doing quite well in qualifying the last 2 seasons, and then the race is where it all falls apart.
We like to peak in Q2.
Well, I mean, it takes the pressure off in the race, which means we can actually talk Formula One without, having our train of thought broken by trying to be competitive. No, do you have any particular disagreements with my assessment of Fernando and Williams, or shall I move on?
No, I completely agree. I don't know if I see it myself. I think it will be McLaren or IndyCar, and then Williams as a third option. But we'll see. It would certainly shake up what has been possibly one of the most boringest driver markets for 2018 for a new season ever, when there had potential to be so much. So I'll cling to anything these days, like a floater. Oh, that's terrible.
Okay, well then I will move on to the McLaren engine saga, because the hot rumour was that all this week, at some point this week that's just been finished, McLaren would be announcing their power units for next year. And nothing of the sort has happened, and my lap is ruined again by Stroll.
Was he taking one?
No, he was holding up Vettel, so by the time I got to the end of the long back straight, yeah, I lost 2 seconds there. Thanks, Lance. You dick. He is the Moriarty to my Sherlock Holmes. Now, obviously, McLaren didn't make any announcement, and I had a discussion with he's not a viewer of the show, but he is an F1 fan. I had a lovely Twitter discussion with a guy, I think his name was Ben Dawson.
Uh-huh.
And he
Be a
had
friend
a
of
very...
the show, Ben.
Yeah, whoever... I don't know him personally, but sure. How was I 2 tenths up and now I'm 2 tenths down in the same corner? I'm going to have to go for another lap after this one. I'm going to back off. And yeah, I've already fucked this completely. Now, he was saying that he wasn't entirely sure what was the best thing to do, but he thinks that switching to Renault makes a lot of sense. My argument for this, because he said that, Honda have had enough time, this has to end. Mm-hmm. My argument has been consistently that as long as they're with Honda, they have the potential to get good. By switching to Renault, in this case, ostensibly to retain the services of a driver at the end of his career, they will be trading long-term championship viability for a short-term performance gain. They will also be paying to be also Rans.
Yeah.
This is the sort of decision that Williams made that led them down the path they are now, where, World Championships and Williams are not spoken in the same sentence. Because it's a very hard thing to get out of. Once you go down the customer route, and once you have a few years of mediocrity, it becomes very difficult to start attracting yourself work sponsorship again.
Yeah.
And, it's already been enough years since McLaren were a World Championship winning outfit, that I don't think becoming customer also-rans at that, I don't think that's necessarily going to help anything. Yeah, they're going to start picking up points probably immediately, but they're going to have nowhere to hide, and they're still not going to be allowed to win.
No.
Do they want points now, or do they want championships tomorrow? That's the way I see it. And yeah, maybe Honda is not competitive up until 2021, and the deal finishes, and McLaren maybe build their own engine or take one of the new power units that might be coming into the sport. But they're still getting 70 million a year between now and then to not win championships. Whereas if they switch to Renault, they're probably paying 40 million a year to not win championships, and that is a huge difference.
Especially when you're still going to be halfway down the pecking order with prize money.
Yeah, exactly.
I also think that with the advent of Stoffel Van Dorn being able to match Alonso's pace of late, Alonso's shine will be somewhat less attractive when someone with a vastly cheaper budget will be just within a tenth or two, and if they're pottering around towards the back, it's not really going to matter if it's a tenth or two's different if they can save 30 million.
No, exactly. So for me, if I was Zach Brown, I would not be remotely tempted to switch to Renault just to keep Fernando Alonso. I think, again, you have to put team before driver in this case, and even if they switch to Renault, he's not going to get a championship. You cut your cloth accordingly, don't you? And right now he's frustrated because the Honda isn't competitive. They switch to Renault, he'll be happy for the first few races, but pretty soon he'll find the limitations of that power unit as well.
Yeah.
And then he'll be in the same position he is now.
No, completely agree. Especially because they're switching out for the next lowest rung.
Yeah.
So
it's not even like a big boost.
No.
So for me, I'd stay with Honda, keep the money. They may still come good, you just don't know.
Especially now that they've got Ilmore coming in to help them, I think, haven't they? Or is that not happening?
The spec for... No, it has happened. They had Ilmore for a while, but I think they got rid of Ilmore, but they've got other... I believe they've got some guys from Mercedes helping out now, actually, under the sanction of the FIA. Oh no, actually no, it's Mercedes that got rid of Ilmore. And it's they're with Honda now. Yeah. Yeah, I've tanned these tyres. I can't go any faster. So at best, I'm going to be 6th. Where are you?
I'm in pole at the minute.
Where has this time come from, Simon?
But to be fair, I finished 3rd in my career mode in a Renault. So this is clearly a track that I've got hooked.
You've always actually, now I come to think of it, China has always been one of your strongest circuits down the years.
I've always managed to get Sector 1 right. I don't know why.
Which I never do.
It's clearly a gung-ho, oh dear moment. But I've purposely just stayed out so that the AI can't cheat.
You have outlived your usefulness and the Mercedes world order executes Ilmo with no remorse.
Actually, I know we're all about the real F1, but let's touch on that for a moment. If anyone listening does have this game and has been wondering, I managed to conclusively prove that the AI do indeed cheat.
Oh yes, do tell.
I had, and I've tested it again to see if I was correct here, but I had qualifying in Spain on changeable conditions. I made it through to Q2. At the start of Q2, rain began to fall, and I put in a quick lap alongside Hulkenberg and Raikkonen. Raikkonen took pole, I was 2nd, Hulkenberg 3rd, and then the track was already beginning to be quite wet by the end of my fast lap. Other cars that came out were sort of 3-4 seconds off our pace, and they couldn't catch us up. We were pretty much locked in those positions. I only sort of sped up the last minute, and when you're not on board with cars, not on track yourself, and you're using time dilation, it seems that the game only considers car and tyre compound. So even though the track was wet and it was coming time to switch to inters, all the cars still on slick tyres. And as I hit time dilation, the game was looking at the car and the tyres and said, well, they should be doing this lap time. And suddenly I went from 2nd to 7th, even though the track conditions were worse than initially. So the trick is, stay out. Just stay out. Or ideally, if you can't stay out, go on board. Like, don't just look at the timing screen. Actually go on board with the car, and that seems to avoid the problem. But shame on you, Cody's. Shame on you.
Bad Codemasters.
I'm sure it's like there's a resource argument behind it or whatever, but still. 4th and 7th.
We did good.
Not too shabby dabby.
Our half is a half.
Yes. Half-assed.
Whoop, whoop.
As it were. And do you know what this means? We've also managed to stay exactly on schedule, which means our main event topic is here for the race. Because it's quite a long one. I've got some controversial opinions here.
GP2 code. GP2 code. ARC.
I like that. Did you hear that?
I did.
Okay. Boo.
So, do you want to introduce our main event topic?
Oh, have I?
Or shall I?
You go for it, because you was the. Oh shit! I didn't mean to do that.
What did you do?
It's spitting with rain, and oh, mind you, everyone's on dry tyres.
I guess we're probably starting on slicks.
Yeah. Sorry, that I was so desperate to not get copyrighted, I pressed X twice, and it's. I didn't need to do anything strategy-wise anyway.
Wow, it's. I didn't. It's giving me. It's giving me no viable alternate strategy. This is a good chance. I don't know if you've experienced it yourself, Simon, but have you noticed that in this game there's actually proper tyre overlap?
Yes.
And there's no longer like a switch that flips. I've really appreciated that. I've used it to my advantage. I'm very good in changeable conditions.
Ooh, I'm less so,
So
so this could go horribly wrong. Weather forecast. We don't know. Oh, fuck off.
I want to see now who's number one driver. I'm going to ask him the same question.
What was... did you get to see what the weather was supposed to do?
It just looked cloudy, as I recall.
Okay.
Weather update. No, not teammate status, Jeff. No, no, Jeff. Right, well, I'll introduce the main topic for this episode, and we'll love to hear everyone's thoughts.
Yeah.
So, on the first episode, Simon got a comment from, I'll just call you Lon, who said they'd be interested to hear our most under and overrated drivers of all time. And I was greatly excited by this question. Because I have some very strong opinions on this topic. And I'm actually curious to hear what you guys think, what Simon thinks. So what we'll do is we'll hold off, we'll get to the usual first lap carnage, and then we can actually have a proper conversation.
That makes sense to me.
But if everyone has a think for theirs, and we'll give you ours, and then we'll compare notes. I think that's a good...
I think it works.
a good way to look at it. Do you have some in mind already, Simon, actually?
I do. For underrated, absolutely. Overrated, I find slightly more difficult, actually.
Same, actually. I have the exact same problem. I imagine our underrated list probably contains a lot of the same names because you and I have very similar taste in drivers.
Yes. They'll all come from about the same 3 or 4 teams, I think, as well.
Yes, they will. And probably the same sort of 10-year window, but
yes.
We're old. Right, I'm going to shut up while we do the race start because ideally we both want to be competitive for a single episode.
I'm capping myself.
Yeah, me too. And we'll have to see... Also, it means I'm more likely to spin into the first corner if the track's getting wet.
And I'm on the
also, I need to pee now, and we've got an hour to go.
I've run out of drink, which means
I'm overfueled as well. Oh, I span a little bit on the line. Oh, Massa! Hell of a
I was going to
getaway.
say, he looked like he was stalking everyone. Oh,
I've already been hit by somebody. And I got a warning for it. Oh, come on now, guys. Right, and I'm glad I've got witnesses now, because that was ridiculous. Oh. No! Oh, my race is over.
Oh no, what's happened?
Oh, I am miles behind you guys now. I tried an aggressive overtake to get back up into the point, and it didn't work. And I span and then held up every car behind me.
I was going to say, it looks a bit scattered behind.
But cars keep hitting me. It's very odd. I might actually pit early for the inters. Still not got any weather update.
I don't pit until DRS gets disabled. That's my... you can normally go a lap earlier, but that's about it, I find. Oh, it's skiddy. Oh, sorry, Vettel. Christ.
What
Oh,
position are
Vettel.
you?
I was in the lead. Vettel's just got me.
I am 15th.
Okay.
So it looks like, at best, lower end of the points for me. Okay, so I'm going to kick us off, since you're being busy being competitive.
Sorry.
The first name out of my hat for underrated, Olivier Panis.
Yes! Sorry.
I'm actually astonished that we have connected so clearly over the years.
So he was my favourite driver.
I'm going to qualify that remark, particularly, I think, by giving reference to his 97 year at Prost.
Yeah, that was championship material, I think.
Yeah, he was taking it to Jacques Villeneuve, which, you know, in a Prost, Jesus, yeah, just Jesus. He also won the '96 Monaco Grand Prix, but under slightly more questionable circumstances, given the actual finish rate for that Grand Prix.
Although that move on Irvine, where he just popped him into the hairpin barrier, was
bit
fab.
iffy. Oh shit! I'm off into the gravel again.
Weather report.
We anticipate an end to this rain in around 5 minutes.
End of rain, 5 minutes. Don't do
Oh
inters.
shit! Okay, I will try and hold off, but it's not feeling good. I wonder actually if you'd be faster on a short interstint. I'm not going to test that theory because obviously I'm always wrong. But
I love your alternate strategies.
No, actually, I don't know. I think I might be, because I'm braking ahead of where it's telling me to, and I'm still running wide every single time, and my car is intact ostensibly.
Esteban Chiro underrated surely, face with stuck out tongue.
Esteban Tuero, he wasn't too bad.
Actually, no, I'm with you on that. I think Esteban Tuero. I mean, he retired, didn't he, at 19?
Yeah, I know. What a crazy thing. There was some kind of health scandal, I think, that went around that he wasn't very well and he had some back problems or something. But
stop running into me, Jesus.
But yeah, so Olivier Panis was my favourite driver of all time. I essentially, completely arbitrarily as a teenager, thought that his name was Penis, which was why he was initially my favourite driver. But
Olivier Penis. It's a good name.
It would have been amazing. And then Murray Walker used to make me laugh because he never said Panis, he said Parnis, like
yes,
parsnip.
For the first few years he did, anyway.
Yeah, and then he seemed to realise how the name was spelt. In 1994, on his debut season, he had he set a record for the most amount of finishes in a debut season, and also I think in a season. So he crashed out only in the French Grand Prix. He finished every other race. The Ligier was dog awful slow, but at least it was reliable. Oh, Vettel, stop it. So that was cool. Got podium in his debut season. Second in Hockenheim, where Mika Hakkinen took out half the field.
I remember that.
And then got his second podium. Do you remember where the Australian Grand Prix '95, where his engine was on fire for about 3 laps? And he was like, no, not pulling over, not pulling over. So good.
Correct.
And if you remember, this is me geeking out now, I've got every year I always buy the F1 season reviews, and I've got all of the old ones, and they're on VHS. I know some people might not even know what the hell they are. And in the 1995 one, they've got the podium press conference, after the race, and that was the only time that Gianni Morbidelli, who is probably next on my list actually,
he's on mine as well.
Arrow's driver, that's why. he got his only podium there, and he was sitting there and he was saying that he thought that was his engine on fire, and he was sitting there, he said, I kept on praying to my engine, I was going, come on engine, another one, stop stinking of oil. I was like, I
love that.
So yeah, should we switch to a little bit of a Gianni Morbidelli then?
Yeah, let's switch to Gianni Morbidelli, because I agree with you, he is and was vastly underrated.
Yes, not just in Formula 1 as well. He done some great stuff in touring car.
He did, and not a lot of people know that he ended up in touring cars, surprisingly. I don't necessarily, it's not like he regularly covered himself with glory. You could just always tell that, given even slightly better machinery, he would have been a more regular points contender than he was. And I don't know if it was a lack of sponsorship that he brought, or what it was, but I always felt he deserved a shot at something bigger than he got.
Yeah. Ooh, fastest lap.
Was that me?
Yeah.
Surely not.
You beat me
What
by
is
1.5
going on?
seconds.
Well, it was completely by accident. I apologise. I apologise to all viewers live. I apologise to everyone watching the VOD back. This is not very Failcast of me.
No, get back to mediocrity, both of us. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it's because... So he he was a Minardi driver, but was a Ferrari test driver along with Nicola Larini, and they kind of like used to dovetail each other.
And given Larini got a chance in the big boys team, and was, for my money, underwhelming, it makes me sad that Morbidelli didn't get that chance.
No, and the only... now, I might pull this out of folklore, and it might have come completely out of my anus, but I believe he was given one shot in the Ferrari, and it was in the 1990 or 1992 Adelaide Grand Prix, and it was the one that was so wet that they cancelled it after 12 laps. And he was, I think, 6th and scored half a point. Because they only gave people like that, they only got like the reserve stuff when Jean Alesi had like done his neck in from yet another crash. God love him.
That's right.
But yeah, Morbidelli done well at Minardi. I think Arrows was his little home. And then when both Larini and Morbidelli went to Sauber, I think that was at the time where Sauber just seemed to be incapable of running two cars properly, because it didn't matter who they were sticking in the second car for like 3 years in a row. They was just a one-car team. So I think he got shafted.
Yeah, because didn't Wendlinger suffer under that period as well? Because I remember Frentzen always looking really good in the Sauber, but Wendlinger was nowhere.
And there was like 3 seconds
Cola.
difference. Yeah.
We think there's a viable strategy change available to us. Would you like to keep to the current plan or try the new one?
Oh no, Jeff, don't offer me an alternative strategy.
Okay, well, I'm going to step up a level here. And I've still got a lot more underrated drivers to talk about.
Ooh.
I'm going to drop a name now, and it's going to be odd because he's a world champion, but Damon Hill. I think because he was up against Schumacher, and because Schumacher went on to be so great, I think we take for granted how good Damon Hill actually was. Like, actually. And if you think back to Belgium 98, the classic Belgian Grand Prix, in my opinion, he stuck it to Schumacher for quite a few laps in a Jordan. I think Hill gets a bum deal because he had his year at Arrows, which did him literally no favours.
No, that's true.
And because if you consider like the great scheme of things, Hill actually had a relatively short career.
Yeah, it's compact, wasn't it?
Yeah, he had less than 10 years in Formula One. Because he debuted in '92 in a March.
In the Brabham.
And then he was retired in '99.
Yep. 8 swift years.
So, given that he only had half of his career was at a competitive team that was on the rise, and the only year that they were realistically capable of winning a title, he won it. And given, you know, the success he had at Jordan, and I think his time at Jordan was successful by anyone's measure.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Hill suffers badly because he's being so tightly compared to Schumacher. When during the course of his career, he was so very rarely equipped to actually compete with Schumacher. But when he was able to compete with Schumacher, he gave as good as he got. And if you look back at a lot of famous Schumacher-Hill battles, although I would feel comfortable saying Schumacher is definitely the better driver,
Yeah.
I think Hill actually held his own remarkably well.
Oh, rain's coming.
What kind of rain?
It didn't say. It just said expect the first few drops in a few minutes. That's annoying.
That's really bad because my tyres have got like one lap left in them.
What was I going to say? For me, Damon Hill, it's less about his driving. It's more about having to deal with, and in the same way how, like, Chilton, I think, also gets a really bad rap. But coping with when a teammate is killed, how you pick yourself up and carry yourself on, and like that whole '94 season was horrific. And then to lose a championship in that manner as well, and then come back. I don't think '95 was his season in his glory either. But yeah, it's I think for me he was like the gentleman champion and probably the last one that we've had. Oh no, maybe I'd put Mika in that category as well. And to me, he kind of signifies the last of a certain type of gentleman racer. And that sounds terrible in a way, because I don't think that sounds like nice, but I mean it in a nice way.
No, I know exactly what you mean. I couldn't agree more. I think he is that old. I say old with affection. That old style of racer. Shit! I overcooked it again. Still, I'm going to have to come in because these tyres are shafted.
Oh shit, I've run wide at turn 1. That's going to lose me the lead.
Cut it a bit fine on the pit entry there then. When are you pitting? Oh, I thought you were on the softs.
Yeah, although they've gone. I'm going to pit this next lap round. But if it's going to rain, I'm quite tempted to say super softs instead of mediums, which is what it wants to put me on.
It depends if it ever, like, if it's rain like at the start of the episode, then you never actually need inters.
That's true. Box this lap.
The fastest lap at this point in time is a 1:41.0.
I didn't ask for the fastest lap. Oh, Ricardo's got me. Ah. I've lost so much grip. This has not gone well this lap. Cool. No, I think
let's take one off your list.
Ooh.
If you can't brain, I can carry on. I can reel these off all night.
Carry on.
Fisichella.
Ooh.
I think a lot of people forget how genuinely good he was, and the fact that he never won a title sort of means he gets very, very overshadowed in a lot of people's views. But, you know, if you think, allowing for the fact that he was, his first stint at Benetton was very up and down because the car was very up and down. Let me through. That was really nasty of me, but I did it anyway. Yeah, there's the rain. I think Fisichella. I rated him very, very highly during his career. Same with Wirtz.
Yeah.
And I sort of think his stint at Ferrari came at a really unfortunate time for him. Although I'm at a loss to explain why he was so uncompetitive. I mean, I know it's a change of car, but the car was clearly better than the Force India he'd been in. And he'd been able to get podiums and front row starts and everything in the Force India.
Yeah.
So quite why he seems so out of his depth in the Ferrari, I don't know. But that and his blippy stint at Benetton aside, I felt like he was always quite consistent. Their line. Why do you have to be such a dick? I'm losing so much time behind him, it's untrue. There we go. I don't have time for your nonsense, Verline. Okay, Alonso up next. And you are in the pits, and about half of the lap ahead of me.
I'm going for mediums because it won't tell me whether or not it's going to be like proper rain or not.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the sky looks kind of light still. I'd try and keep. I'd try and keep to a race strategy that you would be comfortable with, and because if you have to stop for inters, everyone has to stop for inters. So
that's true. I'm back out in third. So
that was a quick stop.
I think the main factor that makes Vizzy possibly underrated is that 5-06 Renault stint.
Yeah, that's true because he was always up against people in their prime. So, like, he couldn't quite match Alonso, but then also seemed to get the brunt of a lot of the problems. Couldn't
Finally gets a top team drive, Alonso kills him.
Yeah. And when you think about, like, he matched Button quite nicely, he matched Wirtz. Yeah, I'm more lukewarm on Fissy than saying that he's underrated.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, but keeping in the Italian blood, because pretty much everyone has been so far. The man who he took the seat from, Mr. Luca Badoer, is my other massively underrated man.
He's not on mine, so please justify your assignment here.
So, he trounced Michele Alboreto in his Lola on his debut season. Then was Minardi tester for 94, came in 95, beat Pierluigi Martini, who is probably also on my list, keeping them.
Yeah, mine too.
Keeping the Italian flavour, and Pedro Lamy, done Montermini, and Marc Genet, and so for me, he beat every teammate. He'd done exceptionally well. He was the Formula 3000 champion in 92, which then Panis then took in 93. And in the infamous kart races that they used to have in France on Eurosport, where all the F1 drivers used to get into the karts and then go round, he won it.
Well, okay, I can accept that.
So
I can accept that.
For me, I cried with him, I think, when he conked out at Nürburgring in 99. But he's now no longer the driver with the most amount of Grand Prix starts without a top 6, because Esteban Gutierrez took it over, thank Christ. So at least he's not got that stat anymore.
It's amazing that Gutierrez got to do that in just 2 seasons, but
3 seasons of joy.
For me, the name that you mentioned that is on my list there is Marc Genet, actually. And I qualified that by looking at his career post-Formula 1. Where he's so he's taken so seriously by Ferrari and by Shell. And if you ever listen to him speak, he's so knowledgeable. And I think a lot of people forget that when he entered Formula One, he was an accountant.
Yeah.
He was one of the last people to enter Formula One from a non-motorsport world. And I think he was... I don't think he was ever championship potential, ever. At least not when he was young enough to compete in Formula One. He probably knows a trick or two now, but it's too late. But I think I take him as proof of Frank Williams' comment that there's probably a million potential world champions roaming around in the world. Maybe they're bicycle salesmen or they make cheese for a living. It's just not everyone can enter motorsport. It's not possible. And I think he's proof of that because, he was quite happy being a corporate accountant and then decided, no, do you know what? I'm fed up of filing people's taxes. I really want to be a Formula One racing driver. And then he went out and did it, and he did not embarrass himself. And for that alone, I think he was probably an underrated accountant and an underrated figure in motorsport. No, he's gone on to build a very respectable career with Ferrari as their preferred test driver.
Yeah. And when he done his races standing in for Montoya at Williams, done a very good job, didn't he?
He did. That was my next point. He was a very competent understudy at Williams when he got a second chance. And at time, I thought that he would find himself in a seat at another team, but didn't happen.
De La Rosa had that covered for the next decade.
Let's have an overrated driver. One Mr. Heikki Kovalainen.
Yes.
Because he was so hyped before he came into Formula One. He was actually, 2005, I think he entered the sport. Leading up to 2005, he was actually the driver I was most excited to see. No, it wasn't 2005. I'm talking out my arse.
2007.
Yeah, because he was Lewis's teammate, right?
No. He was Lewis's in 2008.
Accountant to F1 driver.
But there was so much hype surrounding Kovalainen before he entered the sport that I really had very high hopes for what he was going to achieve. But it just never happened, did it? I mean,
No.
I don't think his McLaren run was totally embarrassing, but it wasn't where someone of his hype level should have been. And then following that, he's just been... I'd like to be able to say he was Mr. Anonymous, but he wasn't, because his drives were actually so far below average in some cases that they became noteworthy purely on that basis.
Yeah.
And particularly,
his first year at Renault was pretty crap. And yeah, I wasn't necessarily excited with him in the slightest. I found him completely underwhelming at...
Yeah, but why would an F1 team take a punt on him, even with all the money
Oh,
he
sorry.
could have
Yeah,
provided?
there's people going nuts about the fact that Janae was an accountant and how on earth do you do that as like a career swap? Very true. I think there needs to be a module of it in like school. But yeah, Kovalainen, I completely agree that underwhelming all the way through. And for me, he was the victim of Ron Dennis just loving a Finnish guy. And so if he would have been German, he would never have got that Mercedes seat in any way, shape or form. Or any other nationality for that fact. I quite liked him. I did quite like him when he was then at Lotus / Caterham / whatever the green machine was. But I don't know if it was him being better or Trulli just being truly fucking awful. Because you kind of think that the truth was probably somewhere in the middle.
I've always had a soft spot for Trulli, but
yeah,
he was very inconsistent. He was a very mercurial driver. Lap times have dropped by about 1.5 seconds in my case. I've got a feeling that we're reaching crossover point.
We are, but it says that this is going to clear up. So a lap and a half ago, Jeff said it will clear up in 10 minutes. And I'm not sure when to... DRS hasn't been turned off yet, so I'm sticking. And the two in front of me are on super
He's offering me a new
softs.
strategy.
Ooh.
He wants me to pit early for a fresh set of softs. But why? Because I can go on super softs later. No, Jeff. No. No, I've been trying to sort of listen to him, but in this case, I don't see what the advantage is to coming in 5 laps early and then being on the slower tyre for the rest of the race. My tyre wear still looks good, so I don't know why if I was going to pit in a lap's time, then I should have been on the super softs. I don't see what benefit there is to transferring early to the slower tyre.
Yeah.
I think you've got this one in the bag, mate, though. If you're running mediums, you have no more stops, right?
In theory, but I think I'm chewing my tyres too much. So, overrated Jeff. Agreed.
Yeah, Jeff is overrated. He's in this version of the game actually made some horrific suggestions. Embarrassing, Jeff. Pick up the pace, man. Yeah, it's Inter's time, as far as I'm concerned.
Can I chuck another overrated man who is also of the Finnish variety?
If you say Mika Hakkinen, I'm never talking to you again.
Oh, not the beautiful Mika.
No, go on.
They want me to change... Oh, no, they don't want me to change on Twinters. Not this lap, anyway. Mr. Raikkonen.
It depends on what year you're talking about, but in general, yes.
He's got the pass of being the popular guy. And for me, I'm afraid, Suz, that's not good enough. You have to still be fast.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I think he's been very complacent the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the same at the end of, let's call it his first career, where I was actually glad he was gone, which I never thought I'd be saying. But at the time, I was very glad he was gone. Who's this who's come out in front of me?
Onwards, yes, Raikkonen hella overrated.
Yeah.
But, as I've just alluded, I think at Lotus, he was
lucky with his
incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think he should have. He was good up till his Lotus bits. And then I was like, nah, I'm done now, mate.
I'm over it.
Yeah, I'm over the Kimmy wagon. And keeping with stuff that's more current, but flipping to underrated, and I think it's become more apparent now that we have Bottas alongside a certain hammy, Mr. Nico Rosberg.
Yeah, he was on my list for the exact same reason. And I've always rated Bottas, actually.
Time for the pit lane in China, so he could have.
To be honest, I always liked Rosberg before he was at Mercedes.
Yeah.
I liked him at Williams. I was a big fan of his in his early career. And although he's not my favourite driver, I do think he was very hard done to by a fairly rabid Lewis fan base and a very pro-Lewis media.
Yeah.
At least in the UK.
Yeah, no, completely agree.
Yeah, to this day, I don't understand why he was out so long, until his tyres gave up.
Oh, they're banging on about people in our chat room talking about China 2007 for Hamilton and why he lost the championship. It's okay. It's a decade. We're all over it now. Just. This is. It's Inter's territory now completely.
It is, and honestly, I'm really tempted to stop, but because you could be so much faster for the short stint, and then as it dries out, switch to super softs for the end of the Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Problem is, I'm
Weather
backing
report.
the points.
Current forecast is 5 or 10 more minutes of rain before
5 or 10 minutes of rain. Oh, that's quite long.
Rosberg is underrated. However, his temperament should be called into question.
Do you know what? I'm going to come in for Inters.
Okay.
I'm going to sacrifice potential points here.
No mate, it was called just mad strats.
Oh shit! I forgot to brake because I was busy selecting tyres. This could be an incredibly stupid move, but I'm going to do it.
I think it is so borderline between the two.
Ruffle lol.
Ruffle lol. Who else is on your list?
Okay, continuing on my list. Should we go to Pierluigi Martini?
Yay! He was a lost champion for me.
Yeah, and he was heroic in the Minardi.
Yeah.
Absolutely heroic.
And the Delaras as well. It was just, yeah. But he was a Minardi man because he spent so many of his years there. Loyal to a fault, almost.
It's a bit early to say, but I think this was the right decision.
Okay. I'm keeping going, but I'll be interested to know what your lap times are.
Okay, I think the track will be
Well, my brakes work again.
Oh, he's just said, I think the track will be drying soon. Oh, no.
I knew it was a risk.
Never mind. It's all good. It's all good. I'm going to have to pit for super softs, I think, anyway. I can't get to the end on the mediums.
Do you know what, though? I think we could have both been on the podium if I hadn't have had that second accident.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, these tyres are working fine.
That's cool.
So it's not like I'm losing a huge amount of time. It's just as if I'd done the low tyre management strategy.
Yeah, Pierluigi Martini obviously leading a lap in the Minardi at Portugal 989. Doing a fab job there. Didn't score many points if I remember rightly. Got the front row start at Phoenix for Minardi as well.
Yeah, I mean, what a legend, no?
I know. The front row for Minardi. And he had...
Would he have done well in F1 with a better team, or would he have faded into obscurity?
Oh, hang on. I'll read that when I get to a straight, Mr. Kaza. Oh, I'm about to lap a Minardi. I don't know. Minardi. Oh, God. Not a Minardi, a Williams. That'd be wishful thinking.
I was going to say, are you so far ahead that you've gone back in time?
Yeah. I will live out my days in 90 F1 regardless of what people ask. Oh, if Ratzenberger hadn't died, do you think he'd have done well in F1? Asks Mr. Kaza. I'm going to say probably not.
Yeah, same.
Because he was he only had a package for 5 races. Anyway, so he was very much a short-term man. So, but no, he'd done respectfully enough. But David Brabham was clearly the team leader there. And I don't see that of changing, and I would have seen him probably not get picked up again after his 5-race deal, because Simtek were just after Dosh. Yeah, and also last point about Pierluigi Martini, what amazing curly hair. We need curly hair like that back again. that hair was rivalled only by Fabrizio Barbazza, who I just wonder how on earth he managed to get that hair in his helmet.
Now, I want to bring up someone else. He doesn't actually fit on either of my lists, but I'm curious if he fits on yours.
Okay.
Mika Salo.
Ooh, now, I'm going to say underrated, but with a caveat of, but didn't take his chance at Ferrari. Underperformed when it mattered.
Yes. Yes, he did. A bit sort of Heinz Howell Frentzen-y in that sense.
Yeah, because there's certain drivers, I think, and I suppose this for me is where I struggled with where you're talking about Fisichella, is for me there's certain drivers who are born to be the midfield scrappers, and Frentzen was one of them, and for me Fisichella was one of them, because whenever he didn't have the pressure he would be blindingly quick and amazing, but then didn't quite translate that when he was in a car that could win all of the time for me. So that always kind of made me go, ooh. But yeah, and Salo, I fit into that hat as well, because done superb work in the Tyrrells. Didn't do too badly in the
I was going to say, his Tyrrell
Sauber.
years for me were...
Underrated or overrated?
Damon Hill was underrated, Mr. Kaza. Yeah, no, his Tyrrell years, I completely agree, was amazing. And as was his debut in the Lotus, where he went round Suzuka in the pissing down rain and was like straight on the pace and doing really great. He'd never even seen the track before. But yeah, I don't think he'd done particularly well in his Sauber time.
He said underrated.
Or
Aside from 1,999, he compared well to everyone he was up against.
Yep, agree with that, Jay.
For me, like, he's in the same category as, and this might be controversial, Eddie Irvine.
Yeah.
Where I can't tell if he's just been subject to some unfavourable comparisons, or if he actually was the real deal, and his timing was off. You know, I mean, at least Irvine got his consistent chance in the top teams, whereas Salo was very much overlooked a lot of the time. But there's some parallels in them for me.
The 96th season was the very first season I watched. So Damon
It's a good
Hill
season
has a
to start
special
96.
place for me, love.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool that Damon has a special memory for you.
I also put Pedro Diniz in the underrated category.
Yes, we do love a little bit of Pedro.
I do, but this is not Grand Prix World related, and it's not Arrows related, and it's nothing like that. And I'm not going to sit here and say he was going to be one of the best. I'm just saying that he often gets labelled as if he was terrible, and he wasn't. He was sort of he proved to be sort of a very safe pair of hands. He was never stellar, but you know he beat Damon on a few occasions.
Yeah.
He beat Parnis on a few occasions.
Yep.
And I think there is room in F1 for drivers that are that safe pair of hands, that have the money to keep teams afloat and are going to get the car to the finish. They're not there making stupid moves that ruin everything for the rest of us.
Stroll. Yeah,
Stroll.
It's. I'd say, yeah, I feel like that time has come and gone a little bit, but from those times, yeah, good pair of safe hands. Bringing it back to the British, underrated Derek Warwick.
Yes, very, very, very much so. Very much so.
Dragging all kinds of shit out those Lotus.
He was.
Arrows.
Now, I'll be honest with you, I've only seen sort of a handful of Derek Warwick's races, but I have no problem at all agreeing with you on that. I mean, he was again another sort of strong, stable hand, and on the few races I have seen, it's not like he was disgracing himself in any manner. Although I probably didn't see his best work. Were there any sort of standout drives for you?
Probably the stuff where he was... Because he'd quite often get his Lotuses into the points before they'd break down. So probably his like 89-90 seasons would be quite good. And his 93 season when he was in the footwork, not too bad as well. But it's a bit like when like Wirtz comes back for that one-off year and stuff like that, where you kind of go, oh, they've brought him back because everyone likes a good old pair of hands. But you know that the career is done. It's a bit weird.
Which was basically the whole grid in 92 and 93, actually.
Yeah.
If you look back, it was all veterans. Like, so much of the grid was 37, 38, 39.
Yeah.
Which is something you don't get anymore. But it used to be, like, you wouldn't really even consider a driver for F1 until he was proven and in his 30s.
Yeah. Now it's all fetal. What else was I going to say? Yeah, it's just I think he's just grossly underrated. Wrong time, wrong place. And keeping in the British faith and controversial, overrated Martin Brundle.
I was actually going to put him in underrated.
Ooh.
So that's one of the few instances where we really do disagree, apparently.
Had potential.
Brundle, for me, like I think at Benetton he was out of his depth. I don't think his Benetton years were worthy of note at all. But I thought he was quite handy in the Ligier when he was, stepping in for Aguri Suzuki. And I think down the years he'd proven himself. He's also I believe he's a Le Mans winner, isn't he, Brundle?
Yep. I'm happy to be changed. I just thought I'd do controversial.
But
I am for turning.
Why do you mark him as overrated?
I think because
There's 3 laps of fuel remaining.
probably
Say again, you're breaking up.
Sky F1 media hype.
Yeah, could be actually. Check your fuel, by the way, mate.
Yeah, I've had to go mix one for a bit. I'm making it again now, but
Which is not good because I'm within a sniff of points again, despite my extra stupid stop, which I shouldn't have made because I could be tickling the end of the podium right now. And I've burnt too much fuel, but I'm clawing it back. I'm already back in the green.
good. I've loved this topic, by the way. This has been good.
Yeah, me too. Actually, I was really excited when I saw it mentioned, and I've still got so many people I want to mention, but I'm trying to sort of keep it somewhat relevant. I always felt Gerhard Berger was underrated.
Yes. Especially because everyone would wax lyrical about Jean Alesi and his speed, but it wouldn't necessarily be him that would be bringing home the points because he'd be busy in a wall somewhere. God love him. But yeah, Berger was the man that brought it on home, and I think he suffered from having to deal with his McLaren years alongside Senna.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. It seemed very much McLaren did to him what Ferrari does to Kimi a little bit.
Yeah.
But his last years at Benetton, I thought were phenomenal.
Great.
He got a pole position.
Yeah, and the win at Hockenheim when he came back.
He was all... Yeah, after his dad died.
Yeah.
And he was actually Tony Jardine's outsider for the championship that year. Obviously, that really didn't happen, but it would have been a nice idea.
I miss Tony Jardine.
Yeah, me too.
And
although I do love Ted and his notebook.
Oh, it's so terrible that it's good again. and all over the place. I've never known anyone that's got so much airtime on TV for being just so awkward. It's like when someone with almost like social Asperger's is let on TV. Love it.
Well, he's so chubby.
He's not chubby. Oh, he doesn't wear clothes that quite match his frame. And also, he is such an old woman. He loves shit stirring, and I love it when some drivers call him out. I tell you what's really interesting. The YouTube channel is getting off our topic, but the YouTube channel F1 Interviews puts up the TED notebook and Will Buxton's NBC stuff, and seeing how drivers react differently to Ted compared to what they do to Will, because Will just wants to be everyone's friend. But actually, he gets a much more different interview out of them, where they're seemingly a bit more relaxed. The only problem is that if you watch Will Buxton, you have to take a shot of alcohol for every time he says the word phenomenal.
Yeah, that would get grating after a bit, I imagine.
Everything is phenomenal. I tell you, I went for a poo and it was phenomenal. That's how dramatic that is. Oh, please, tyres, be fine. It's just the last lap now.
This is your final lap.
I could technically be 9th if I can just close this gap. Oh no, 10th. But it's feasible.
Do it.
I think you're going to extend your lead here. Are you going to win this race?
Quite possibly. It's looking really tight though.
That is disgraceful.
Come on, Pascal, get out the fucking way. Thank you. Well, actually, that's probably not a
No
good thing to have
signs,
done.
no.
And my last little mini shout out for drivers, not underrated, not overrated, but just someone who I absolutely salute, Piercarlo Ghinzani of Osella and Ligier fame. No one was so mediocre and so journeyman-like, but managed to spend an entire decade in Formula One driving the little Osella car that never finished. And he scored... So he has the least points to race start ratio. So he started, and this is not including all of the times that he did not qualify or did not pre-qualify, 114 races. And he only scored 2 points.
Mate, it's embarrassing how close you were to lapping me. Congratulations, though.
Thank you very much, sir.
It happens so rarely that one of us wins. I believe we're 2 for 2 now. We've both won 2 races in our Failcast careers.
Whoop, whoop. Oh,
I think that's right. Maybe it's 3-2 to you.
I feel like you should banzai down at the hairpin. Oh, I mean...
You and me have exactly the same thought.
Banzai!
I'm hoping I get the Durs, but I don't think it's likely.
No, it looks a bit too far back, maybe.
Well, that sounds like a challenge.
What kind of racing line was that? I had to go on mute.
And I've run out of fuel.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've crashed on the slowdown lap. There's been a massive accident. What's happened?
This is us all over.
Win the race, crash the car on the warm down lap. Oh.
Woo!
Yeah, they did call their car a fail, Osella, but I also want to... I think they became the first F1 team, which then didn't turn up to the race. And they brought along Gabriele Tarquini, who I think was a great driver until he done the terrible one race at Tyrrell in '95 and got lapped 6 times somehow.
Yeah, grim. Well, mate, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I could have been fifth or sixth, and I took my chance on the inters. Didn't work, but my lap times were competitive.
Yeah. You're good.
So I think I could have been fifth or sixth, conditions prevailing. Still, you extend. You're now second in the Drivers' Championship.
What?
With a 33-point lead over your old pal Esteban.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll swing round the other way soon.
And we are third in the Constructors.
Wow, that's a full pass.
Yeah. Something about this isn't right.
I feel this has gone a bit too professional for our own good.
I tell you what, you have to watch the race start back on my VOD. Because I got battered around like you wouldn't believe.
Did you need to call out the RSPCA?
I did. I was an abused animal. It was ridiculous. Particularly Sainz as well. Sainz was super aggressive defending in the early laps.
Clearly Toro Rosso AI works.
Apparently so. Although it should be Kvyat really who was torpedoing people off the road.
Exactly.
Well, mate, that was an enjoyable episode.
That was.
I don't think we finished the full list of under and overrated drivers, but I think some key names came up.
Absolutely. And if anyone's got any particular topics that they'd like us to go over,
be more worrying if you weren't get gut now.
Oh, no, we never get good, Jay. We never get good. But no, if people do have topics, please leave them in the comments, either on definitely Zero's Twitch channel or on the video on this onto YouTube, and we'll definitely take it into account for the next episode, which will be coming in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, we actually plan now. We do things properly.
I feel like I need to lie down.
Yeah, well, we'll both go lie down in a dark room. Thank you to everyone for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure and delight as always.
Yes.
And we'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, take care, everyone. Bye.
Ciao for now.
Did you like my pose? That's okay. I'm not far behind.